Good morning, class. So for today's discussion, we are going to talk about one of the most important field of study in linguistics, which is the syntax. So, do you have any idea of what syntax is? To give you a brief background about it, let me give you an example.
The first example is I cry because I am mad, and the second one is I am mad because I cry. See the difference? This is because the meaning of a sentence changes depending on its structure or word order, and syntax allows us to study the sentence patterns of language. Our next example would be a famous sentence coined by Noam Chomsky. Colorless green ideas sleep furiously. So we could already see what is wrong with this sentence. We could already see that this is really a nonsense sentence. But in English, it is already a perfectly well formed sentence syntactically. There are two adjectives preceding the noun, which precedes the verb, and an adverb coming after it. Moving on, let us proceed to the syntactic categories, which is the set of words and or phrases in a language that share a significant number of common characteristics. This includes the parts of speech, like the noun, adjectives, verbs. Then the phrase structure grammars, that includes the noun phrase, adjective phrase, verb phrase, and etc. Then the sentence, which is the core of the structure. And we will go through this later in the discussion. So let us have a quick review of the parts of speech. Let us begin with the noun, or basically a name of a person, a place, or a thing, like George, Manila, and a ball pen. The next one would be the adjectives, which goes with nouns since it describes or modifies them. Some examples of this are huge, small, loud. Yeah. The next one is the verbs or the action words: walk, talk, cry. Yeah. Next is the adverbs. And just like the adjectives, adverbs goes with verbs. Next is the pronouns. It is similar to nouns, but it points to someone or something, like he, she, they, them. It represents a person or a thing. And the last one is the determiner, or a modifying word determining the kind of reference a noun has. Example, the, every. Those are some examples of the determiners, which we will encounter as we go through this lesson. Now, let us proceed to the phrase structure grammars, which consist of the noun phrase, adjective phrase, verb phrase, and etc. But before that, let us define what phrase is first. So, phrase is a sequence of words or a group of words arranged in a grammatical construction and functions as a unit in a sentence.
Class, there are actually a lot of commonly occurring types of phrase, but I will just give the three most used phrases and its meaning since I will discuss it further when we reach the phrase structure rule lesson, okay?
So, let us begin with the noun phrase. A noun phrase refers to a phrase built upon a noun which functions as the head word of the phrase. Second is the verb phrase. It refers to a phrase that is composed of at least one verb and the dependence of the verb, in which the verb functions as the head word of the phrase. Last one would be the prepositional phrase. It refers to a phrase that begins with a preposition and functions as the head word of the phrase. Before we proceed to the phrase structure rules, it is important to learn about the syntactic labels first. So please take note of this as we will encounter this often in this lesson. Now, let us proceed to the phrase structure rule, which tells us how to combine the syntactic categories together and which orders are acceptable to form a sentence. So let me explain this set of codes listed in here. Starting off with the first one, which is the S, arrow, NP, and VP. That just means that a sentence must consist of a noun phrase and a verb phrase. So you have to have a noun phrase and a verb phrase in that order to form a sentence. Next is the noun phrase, which needs to have minimally a noun in order to be formed. It can consist of just one word, just like chair. But it can also have a determiner like the chair. It can also have an adjective like the blue chair. It can also have a prepositional phrase like the blue chair in the corner. But keep in mind that these are just optional, okay? A noun is the minimum requirement in order to have a noun phrase. Next is we have the double P or the prepositional phrase. In this, we need to have a preposition like across, near, by, to, and the noun phrase in order to be formed. Lastly, we have the VP or the verb phrase. Just like the noun phrase, the verb phrase has only a minimum requirement of having a verb in it. But it can also have a noun phrase, a prepositional phrase, and an adverb as well.
Now that we are already familiarized with the syntactic categories, let us keep in mind that syntactic categories are often illustrated by the phrase structure tree, by supplying the name of the syntactic category of each word grouping. These names are often referred to as syntactic labels. They are usually written by the initial of the categories, just like the ones that I've shown you on the past slide. So what is a tree structure, you may ask? Tree structure is a really valuable thing that linguists use to structurally represent what is going on in their language. And how do they organize words into sentences? So to fully understand and to give you more enlightenment about this, let me show you some examples and ways how to draw a tree diagram. So our first example would be a simple sentence with just two words. Let's have Ling run. So the first thing that we have to do is to put an S on top, meaning that what we are going to do is a sentence. And based on the phrase structure rule, a sentence must consist of a noun phrase and a verb phrase. That is why the next thing that we'll do is put a noun phrase and a verb phrase below the sentence. Just like this. Then, yeah, we will always start like this class. Always remember that. We should always remember to be specific when it comes to the word's part of speech. So we have to specify if the word is a noun, a determiner, an adjective, or whatsoever. In this case, Ling is a name of a person, so it is of course a noun. What we're going to do is write it down below. Noun phrase, then a noun, before we write down Ling. After that, we have the verb run. And just like what we did earlier, we have to specify first that it is a verb before proceeding on writing it down. Just like this. So yeah, this is a very simple tree diagram just to help you familiarize first. Now, let's move on and make it a bit more complicated. Let's add an adverb like Ling ran swiftly. Like that. Well, we already have a verb phrase here, and because swiftly is an adverb which describes our verb, we will connect it to the verb phrase. So, let's add the adverb in here. And there you go. Let's do a tree diagram for a sentence like the angry man ran swiftly. So let's start with the. What part of speech does that belong to? Of course, it is a determiner. So we have the determiner the. Then we have the adjective, which is the angry. Let's put it down here. Lastly, we have the noun man. Now that we're done doing the noun phrase, let us then proceed to the verb phrase. Well, just a tip. Once we reach the verb, then we're automatically doing the verb phrase. That means that the verb and everything following it is a part of the verb phrase. So we have the verb run, and then our adverb. The angry man ran swiftly. Let's have another example. The woman kicked the toy. Once again, let us try and break down the syntactic categories one by one. So first, we have the determiner. And then we have our noun. After that, we're now going to proceed to the verb phrase. So let's write the verb, which is kick. Wait, let me translate this first. There. Then, for the last two words, we have the toy. The toy. What part of speech are those? Of course, they are a determiner and a noun as well. So that means that this is actually a noun phrase. You might be wondering where to put it, yeah? Well, the noun phrase would be written under the verb phrase before we indicate its part of speech. Then, write down, be specific, the toy. Once again, and then just like that, we're already done. So let's make another complicated sentence. The man hit the ball with a bat. Once again, let us break it down one by one. The man. Then the verb phrase. Let us drag this here since this is kind of long. Hit. Then the noun phrase. The noun ball. And then we have the prepositional phrase. So remember that in the phrase structure rule, a prepositional phrase should have a preposition and the noun phrase, just like what we have here with the bat. So let's put another phrase under the verb phrase and write down the preposition with. Let's put a prepositional phrase here. And preposition and the noun phrase. So the preposition is with. Then the noun phrase, the bat. Determiner and the noun. I'm sorry it's kinda messy, but I hope you're getting the point. The man hit the ball with the bat. So once again, this is how we draw a tree diagram for syntax. It is a bit complicated, but for me, it's really fun. That's it for today's discussion class. I hope you managed to learn something even though our lesson is a bit complicated. There's actually still a lot to be discussed about syntax, but maybe we'll talk more about it soon. Until then, this is Miss Aliah. Goodbye and thank you.